range. And now for one of the most amazing creatures on the planet, the ghost bat. Now, ghost bats are probably the largest purely carnivorous bats in the world. I mean, first thing is like how they got their name. I mean they do look like little phantoms, because they have an abnormally pale grey, almost white fur on the body, but also the membrane of the wings is quite transparent. I mean, if it hits torchlight, it almost looks like a ghostly cloak. But of course, the teeth are absolutely formidable. I mean, these animals are of no danger to us as human beings, but it's those incredible teeth that allow this remarkable animal to feed not only on insects, but they will also use those huge teeth to bite down through the head and the neck of lizards, frogs, other bats, birds, small mammals. I mean, they really are a flying nightmare. I mean, they hunt like ghosts and kill like storybook vampires. Of course, ghost bats are a protected species, and it's not advised that you go around disturbing their roosts unless you have special permission and are with an expert who knows how to handle them. Of course, they're of no danger to us as humans, but if you were a lizard, a frog, another bat, a bird, or a small mammal, these would be your living nightmare. And of course, I personally blame the person who wrote Dracula for the reputation bats have got, because they're of no danger to us as humans, but to me they are incredible creatures, because they're probably the only purely flying mammal. Because like birds, they can fly because they have very lightweight skeletons and wings that enable them to fly. Of course, the struts in between the membrane are fingers and hand bones. And here is their range. Now, the next animal I'm going to show you is the largest carnivorous marsupial. It is the Tasmanian Devil. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking that when I said Tasmanian Devil, I was going to talk about Taz from Looney Tunes. I mean, he was loosely based around these animals, and of course, in fact, how they got their name, the Tasmanian Devil or Tassie Devil, was all down to the fact that early European settlers in that part of the world heard their screaming and their wailing and thought that they were some kind of spirit ghost off in the wilderness. But, as it turns out, it was these guys. And one of the reasons why they're so bad-tempered is all down to dominance and who gets the best bits of meat. Because, as I said, these animals are the largest carnivorous marsupials. And marsupials are mammals that grow their babies in a pouch on the mother's belly. And despite their small size, they have an enormous head with very large canine teeth and powerful side teeth called carnassials. And of course, their main diet is mostly carrion, dead meat. But they are predators, and they will hunt crustaceans, invertebrates, as well as lizards, frogs, birds, small mammals, pretty much anything they can tackle. Of course, they use their phenomenal sense of smell to locate prey and carrion from over a kilometre away. And of course, once they've found a kill, then they give a snorting sound to warn off other Tasmanian devils. But if that's ignored, then all hell breaks loose. And of course, quite often when people have been close to Tasmanian devils feeding, quite often you can hear a sickening crunch as their huge, powerful jaws and teeth get a hold of a good bit of bone or sinew and just make absolute mincemeat of it. Unfortunately, Tasmanian devils were one of the many animals that were hit very badly by European settlers, because when Europeans arrived in Australia over 200 years ago with livestock and guns, they decimated much of Australia's unique wildlife, including the Tasmanian devils, and of course it restricted them to one of their last remaining strongholds being on the island of Tasmania in the south. But over the last few decades, there has been something even worse than humans that have been affecting Tasmanian devils, and it's all some form of cancer that only affects Tasmanian devils, and it causes tumours around the nose, the mouth, and the eyes, which makes it difficult for them to hunt and to feed. And it's over the last few decades, it has decimated their numbers by at least 40 or 50%, and so they are now one of Australia's most threatened animals. But there is hope, because recently biologists have finally been able to bring Tasmanian devils back to some parts of the mainland in southeast Australia with specially constructed pens that in their old habitat to see how they can cope on the mainland. Hopefully they'll be able to breed on the mainland, and they'll be able to spread back to the rest of mainland Australia to recover their original range, and then hopefully, touch wood, in 20 years' time, they might be able to not only increase in numbers, but also there could be a cure or vaccine for the Tasmanian devil cancer that is destroying their numbers. I hope so, because I know these animals do look quite cute and cuddly, but so I really would not advise trying to give one a cuddle, because despite their size, they have a foul temper, appalling table manners, and incredibly powerful jaws, and they could quite possibly make a right mess of my hand. This is their range. In fact, around here, Tasmania is one of their last remaining strongholds, but around here they have been reintroduced to the mainland, as I mentioned earlier, so hopefully they'll be able to link up with these scattered pockets of Tasmanian devils, so they'll be able to interbreed, which will cause a lot less health problems than inbreeding, and hopefully their population could increase in the next 20 or 30 years. Let's hope. Now, probably for Australia's hardiest animal, the budgies. Now, budgies, as many people probably know, are a very popular bird to have as a pet. But what many people don't know is that budgies actually originated in Australia, and they're one of Australia's hardiest creatures. In fact, they can travel for miles and miles across the desert to find water, and they always flock together in millions. And they can travel for miles and miles in huge flocks to find water. Of course, they're also preyed upon by hawks or falcons that do feed on budgies. But quite often, flocking together like this makes it hard for a predator to pick out an individual. Although, if a budgie leaves its companions for more than a millisecond at the waterside, it's taken. But budgies are very hardy creatures, and and they can always find water anywhere. And of course, fortunately, budgies that are kept in captivity are not stolen from the wild, because I did some research into this. They're not stolen from the wild, they're captive bred, so they're captive bred, which means that they were originally from the wild, but they have been captive bred, and now for many decades, hence why they come in different colours as well. And in fact, they are, the ones that have been bred in captivity will cope a lot better among people. Of course, this is the range of the budgies. And now, the next animal I'm going to show you all is probably the closest thing in the natural world to an alien spaceship. It is the giant cuttlefish. Now, giant cuttlefish are cephalopods, so they're in the same group as like squid and octopus, and they're sort of like an underwater chameleon, because like chameleons, the cuttlefish can change its colour, but quite often that can be used to describe their emotions, like fear, to anger, or to protect the territory, or even like this male here, because the males are always bigger than the females. He will make these lights these lights here to actually attract a female to get the right to mate with her. Although quite often, two male cuttlefish, like you can see here, will fight each other for the best patch and also for breeding rights. Of course, another thing about cuttlefish that I've always found the most fascinating is that they have probably the most advanced vision of any sea creature, because they can see in polarised light.